Oh, darling, pull up a chair and let me tell you about the day my world cracked wide open like a thunderclap in a summer storm. It was back in '08, smack dab in the middle of that god-awful recession that had good folks eating shoe leather just to get by. I was 82 then, sitting on the sagging porch of our little white farmhouse in Elmwood, Iowa, the kind of place where the corn whispers secrets to the wind. My Harry, my rock, my everything of 35 years we'd been married since the war days, had been out driving that rusty old Ford pickup to the lumber mill down in Des Moines. Rain was pouring cats and dogs that morning, turning the roads to slick and snot mud. I was inside stirring a pot of chicken noodle soup the way Mama taught me, thick with carrots from the garden and a pinch of thyme for luck. When the phone jangled like a banshee on the wall, I wiped my hands on my apron, that faded floral one Harry always said made me look like a picture from the Sears catalog, and picked up. It was Sheriff Harlan, his voice gravelly as the quarry road. "Mabel," he said, "there's been an accident. Harry's gone. Gone." Just like that. No warning, no goodbye. No chance to say I love you one more time. They said some young buck in a shiny SUV lost control on the curve, crossed the line, and smashed right into him head on. Harry didn't stand a chance. The truck was totaled, twisted metal and shattered glass, and they had to use the jaws of life to pry him out. But he was already cold, they whispered, like he knew it was coming and slipped away peaceful. I wiped my hands on my apron, that faded floral one Harry always said made me look like a picture from the Sears catalog, and picked up. It was Sheriff Harlan, his voice gravelly as the quarry road.
"Mabel," he said, "there's been an accident. Harry's gone. Gone, just like that. No warning, no goodbye, no chance to say I love you one more time. They said some young buck in a shiny SUV lost control on the curve, crossed the line, and smashed right into him head on. Harry didn't stand a chance. The truck was totaled, twisted metal and shattered glass, and they had to use the jaws of life to pry him out. But he was already cold," they whispered, like he knew it was coming, and slipped away peaceful.
I dropped the phone right there in the kitchen, the receiver dangling like a hanged man swinging against the wall. My knees buckled and I sank to the linoleum floor, the one Harry laid himself with his own two hands back in '65. Sobs racked me like the ague, deep guttural cries that shook my whole body. The soup boiled over, filling the house with that burnt smell, but I couldn't move. All I could see was Harry's face that morning, smiling over his coffee black as tar, kissing my forehead and saying, "Don't wait up, old girl, I'll be home before the cows come in." Now the rocker on the porch sat empty, creaking in the wind like it was morning too. Our life together flashed before me, the good, the bad, the in-between. Dancing at the VFW hall to Glenn Miller tunes after the war, raising 3 kids in this very house, scraping through the oil crisis of the '70s when gas lines stretched longer than a politician's promise. Honey, that heartbreak was just the crack in the dam. Harry took secrets with him, buried deep as the roots of that old oak in the yard. Secrets from his daddy's time in World War II, foxholes in Normandy, and buddies blown to bits by German shells. Secrets from when our boy enlisted for Vietnam, coming home in a box with a flag draped over it, leaving a hole in our hearts bigger than the Grand Canyon. And then there was the family shame, the one we never spoke of, about my sister Rosie and that baby she had out of wedlock during the Depression, given up to strangers to keep the town's wagging tongues quiet. Harry knew it all, carried it like a sack of stones, and now it was pouring out, flooding my mind with memories I'd locked away tighter than a miser's purse. I sat there till dusk, the rain easing to a drizzle, watching the fireflies dance like lost souls in the yard. The kids called, of course, Jenny from California, Tom from Chicago, both with their own families now, but their voices cracked over the line, echoing my pain.
"Mama, we're coming," they said, but I knew nothing could fix this. Harry's gone, and with him a piece of me. Yet as the stars peeked out, pinpricks of light in the black velvet sky, something stirred in my chest, a flicker of the fighter I'd always been. Life's thrown haymakers at me since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, the Dust Bowl starving us, the wars stealing our men, recessions foreclosing dreams left and right. But I've bent, not broke, and maybe, just maybe, shorin' this tale helps some other soul out there who's hurtin'. So stick around, sugar, while I spin the whole yarn from the beginning. It's a doozy full of tears and triumphs, the kind of story that reminds us we're all in this American ride together.
I was born in 1925, right in the thick of things in Elmwood, Iowa, a dot on the map where the fields stretch out forever and the sky feels close enough to touch. Folks back then called it the roaring 20s tail end, but by the time I came along hollering into this world, it was all crashing down with that big stock market tumble in 29. My folks named me Mabel after my grandma on Pa's side, the one who crossed the prairie in a covered wagon back when the West was wild. I came into being on a crisp fall morning, October 12th to be exact, in our two-room farmhouse that Pa built with his own sweat and the help of neighbors at a barn raising. Mama always said I was a fighter from the get-go, red-faced and squalling like a banshee when the midwife pulled me out. No fancy doctors for us, just old Doc Harlan with his black bag and a prayer. Pa was Elias Thorne, a big old bear of a man with a beard like Santa Claus and eyes that twinkled when he laughed, which wasn't near often enough in those days. He worked the land from sunup to sundown, planting corn and soy that barely filled the silo some years. Mama was Lydia, slender as a willow with hair the color of ripe wheat, always humming hymns while she scrubbed the floors or canned peaches from the orchard. They met at a church social in 1918, right after the Great War ended, and tied the knot quick as you please. By the time the Depression hit, they had 5 mouths to feed me smack in the middle, with brothers Jake and Billy on one side and sister Rosie on the other. We were poor as church mice, but rich in love, or so Mama said to keep our chins up. Life on the farm was a rhythm you could set your watch by. Dawn broke with the roosters crow and Pa yelling for us kids to get a move on. I'd scramble out of my feather bed shared with Rosie, the quilts patched 100 times over from flour sacks, and dash to the pump for water, icy cold, that'd wake you quicker than a slap. Breakfast was porridge thin as wallpaper paste most days, stirred with a dollop of molasses, if we were lucky. Pa'd say grace with his hat in his hand, thanking the Lord for the bounty even when the pantry echoed hollow. Then off to chores, Jake and Billy hauling hay bales heavier than sin, Rosie feeding the chickens, their beaks pecking at her fingers like they owned the place. Me, I was the runt, gathering eggs from the nest still warm, dodging the ornery hen that'd chase you round the coop with murder in her eye. Summers were the best golden days that stretched lazy and long. We'd kick off our shoes soon as school let out, which was just a one-room schoolhouse down the dirt road, teacher Miss Abigail with her ruler and stern glare. Barefoot, we'd race through the cornfields, the stalks towering over us like green soldiers playing hide and seek till the sun dipped low. Pa'd let us ride the old plow horse, gentle giant named Buck, his mane tickling our faces as we galloped pretend across the plains. Evenings meant supper on the porch, fried chicken if a hen stopped laying, or beans and cornbread that stuck to your ribs. Mama'd tell stories then, sitting in her rocker knitting socks for the family, tales of her own ma crossing the Mississippi on a flatboat, dodging Indians and floods. We'd lean in close, fireflies blinking like fairy lights, and I'd dream of adventures beyond our fence line. But the Dust Bowl came calling like a grim reaper, and 34 wines howling fierce as a cyclone, scooping up the topsoil and leaving nothing but grit in your teeth. Pa's fields turned to barren dust, crops withering before they sprouted. We'd hunker in the house windows, taped with rags, coughing up black phlegm from the air, thick as smoke. Folks packed up and headed west to California, chasing jobs like the Jodes in that Steinbeck book I read later, but Pa dug in stubborn as a mule. This land's ours, he'd growl, planting seed anyway, only for it to blow away. Money got scarcer than hen's teeth. We traded eggs for sugar at the general store, Mr. Wilkins tallying on his ledger with a sigh. Christmas that year was a single orange each and a corncob doll for me, but we sang carols round the stove, voices warming the chill. Rosie and I were thick as thieves back then, 2 peas in a pod, shouting secrets under the covers at night. She was 2 years older, bossy but kind, teaching me how to braid my hair or sneak cookies from the jar. Jake was the dreamer, always sketching pictures in the dirt with a stick, talking about joining the circus when he grew up. Billy the baby was all mischief, stealing pies off the windowsill and blaming the dog. Pa'd gather us Sundays for Bible reading, his voice booming like thunder on the parables, teaching us about the prodigal son and how hard times build character. Church was the highlight, the little white steeple building in town where Reverend Hayes preached fire and brimstone, but after the sermon came the potluck fried chicken and potato salad enough to feed an army. First taste of real joy came at the county fair in '38 when I was 13 and feeling my oats. Pa scraped together a nickel for each of us to get in, the midway buzzing with barkers and the smell of cotton candy sweet as sin. We rode the Ferris wheel, creaking slow up to the stars, my stomach flipping like a fish on a line. Rosie won a blue ribbon for her quilt patchwork of feed bags. Pa beaming prouder than a peacock. That's where I saw my first beau, Tommy Wilkins, son of the storekeeper, with his freckles and shy smile. He shared his popcorn, kernels warm and salty, and we walked the animal barns giggling at the pigs rooting in the mud. Innocent as apple pie, but it stirred something in me, a flutter like butterflies in my belly. Schooling was spotted those years. The teacher quit when her pa lost the farm, and we studied by mail order books yellowed and dog-eared. I loved reading, though. Bev Warren library books from the book mobile that came once a month. Little Women, my favorite, imagining myself as Joe March scribbling stories by candlelight. Pa'd quiz us on arithmetic figures for the farm ledger, and Mama taught Sue and her needle flying swift as a bird. We learned resilience early, mending fences literal, and not when the bank man came sniffing round for payments we couldn't make. Keep your chin up, Mabel, Pa'd say, ruffling my hair. The good Lord's got a plan even if we can't see it. Then the war clouds gathered, that big World War II rumbling across the ocean like a freight train. Radios crackled with news of Hitler and Pearl Harbor, 1941 changing everything overnight. Pa listened stone-faced, his pipe clenched tight, while Mama wrung her apron worrying over cousins in the fight. Jake enlisted first at 18, tall and lanky in his uniform, kissing Mama goodbye with tears in his eyes.
I'll be back before you know it, he promised, but we all knew better. He promised, but we all knew better. Letters came from boot camp in Georgia, talking drills and chow that tasted like boot leather. The town sent him off with a parade, flags waving and folks cheering, but I saw the fear in Rosie's face mirroring mine.
Ration Inn hit hot stamps for sugar and gas, tires scarce as diamonds. We planted victory gardens out back, tomatoes and beans poking through the dirt like hopeful soldiers. Mama rolled bandages for the Red Cross, her fingers nimble while I collected scrap metal from the field's old plows and wire. Dances at the Grange Hall kept spirits up, boys in khaki twirling us to swing music on the phonograph. I was sweet on Tommy still, but he shipped out 2 Navy bound for the Pacific, his last letter promising a ring when he got back. Nights I'd pray by the window, stars mocking me with their distance, wondering if he'd see the same sky. Pa held the fort, but the worry aged him overnight lines deep as furrows on his brow. Billy was too young yet, but he played soldier in the yard, stick gun blazing at imaginary Japs. Rosie took a job at the cannery packing peas for the troops, her hands stained green and calloused. Me, I helped Mama with the wash, boiling uniforms for neighbors whose boys were gone. News came grim, ration books couldn't fill the ache when Jake's letter stopped, then the telegram yellow as bile slipping under the door. Mama collapsed, Pa holding her while we kids stood frozen. Jake lost in Italy, shrapnel from a mine, they said a hero's death, but it felt like theft. The war dragged on, blackouts draping the town in shadow, air raid drills sending us to the cellar damp and spiderwebbed. I turned 17 and 43, feeling older than Methuselah, my dreams of college fading like mist. Instead, I worked the harvest with Pa, scythe swinging till my arms screamed, sweating under the relentless sun. Rosie confided in me one night, whispering about a boy from the next farm, kisses stolen in the hayloft that led to trouble. What if Ma finds out, she fretted. But we kept it buried deep, a secret seed planted in the dark. Victory in Europe came in 45, church bells ringing wild, but the Pacific dragged bloody. Tommy made it home on leave, thinner but whole, slipping a locket round my neck with his picture inside. We walked the fields hand in hand, talking futures, farms, and babies, his kiss soft as summer rain. But Japan surrendered soon after, Hiroshima's shadow hanging heavy, and the boys poured home, changed men with haunted eyes. Pa welcomed Jake's memory with a star in the window, but the empty chair at supper echoed loud. Like post-war life bloomed tentative like crocuses after frost. Folks rebuilt, GI Bill sending boys to school, factories humming again. I met Harry at the fair that summer, 1946, him fresh from the army with a duffel over his shoulder and a grin wide as the Mississippi. He was fixing tractors for his pa, grease under his nails, but his laugh lit up the midway brighter than the lights. We danced to Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy on the wooden floor. His hand warm on my waist, and I knew he'd stolen my heart cleaner than a fox in the hen house. Courted proper chaperoned walks by the creek, stolen glances at the picture show in town, watching Casablanca with tears streaming. Approve, slapping Harry on the back hard enough to rattle teeth, and Mama baked her famous apple pie for the engagement supper. We went into church, simple as sin, me in Rosie's hand-me-down dress with lace from Mama's hope chest. Rosie stood up for me, her smile bright but eyes shadowed by her own burdens, that baby born quiet in a home for unwed mothers, given away to keep the family name clean. We never spoke of it, but it hung like smoke. Harry and I set up house in a cabin on his folks' land, dreaming of our own farm someday, the world feeling full of promise after the darkness. Those early years shaped me tough as leather, teaching that joy sneaks in between the cracks of hardship like weeds through concrete. From Dust Bowl dirge to war's wail, I learned to hold on, family the anchor in the storm. Little did I know the real gales were brewing, tragedies peeling up like storm clouds on the horizon, but that's a tale for another breathing space, sugar. For now, remember this life's not about the blows it lands, but how you rise swinging. Harry and I started out full of beans, thinking the world was our oyster after that wedding in '46. We had a little place on the edge of Elmwood, a 2-room shack with a leaky roof and a wood stove that belched smoke like a dragon, but it was ours. He worked the fields with his pa, rising before the roosters to plow under the stars' fading sky, while I kept the home fires burning, baking bread that rose high and true, mending his overalls by the light of a kerosene lamp. Our first babe came quick, a boy we named Elias after my pa, chubby-cheeked and hollering with lungs like a steamboat whistle. Harry'd scoop him up after a long day, tossing him high till the giggles filled the air sweeter than honeysuckle. Life felt like it was turning a corner, the war's shadow lifting slow, folks talking about baby booms and bright tomorrows. But the Korean War sneaked up on us in '50, calling Harry back like a bad debt collector. He was 30 then, too old for the draft, they said, but he signed up voluntary, saying his country needed him after what happened to Jake. I begged him not to, clinging to his shirt with Elias on my hip, but his jaw set stubborn as flint. "Gotta do my part, Mabel," he said, kissing us both before boarding the bus to Camp Dodge, his duffel slung over one shoulder. Letters flew back and forth, him in foxholes near the chosen reservoir, freezing his toes off in that frozen hell, talking about Chinese hordes coming down the hills like ants from a hill kicked over. I planted more victory gardens, even though the war was half a world away, and worked double shifts at the diner in town, slinging hash and coffee to truckers who grumbled about prices rising faster than East. Elias was walking by the time Harry came home in '53, a Purple Heart tucked in his pocket and a limp from shrapnel in his leg that ached come rain. He never talked much about the fighting, just stared into the fire some nights, his pipe glowing like a lonely beacon. But the farm was prospering then, corn prices high from the demand, and we added 2 more young'uns, Jenny in '55, all curls and mischief, and Tom in '58, quiet as a mouse but sharp as a tack. Sundays we'd pile into the old Chevy for church, the kids squabbling in the back seat over who got the window, Harry squeezing my hand over the gear shift. Potlucks after service meant fried chicken and gossip, neighbors swapping stories about the new TV sets sprouting in parlors like mushrooms after rain. Trouble brewed slow at first, like a pot simmering on the back burner. The '50s faded into the '60s, and that Vietnam mess started heating up, sucking in boys like a whirlpool. Our town was just a tyke when the protests hit the papers, but by '68 he was 18, fresh out of high school with a football scholarship waiting at Iowa State. We thought he'd dodge it, studying agriculture like his pa, but the lottery came calling, number low as a snake's belly. Tom drew it brave, enlisting Marines to make it his choice, kissing Jenny goodbye at the bus station with tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'll write every day, Ma," he promised, his uniform crisp, but I saw the fear flickering in his eyes like a candle in the wind. Harry took it hard, patching the porch at night, muttering about how the government's sending kids to die for nothing. Jenny was off to college by then, studying nursing in Des Moines, coming home weekends with tales of sit-ins and long hair. Elias was married, working the oil fields up north, sending money when he could. Me, I prayed till my knees bruised, lighting candles at St. Mary's for Tom's safe return. Letters came sporadic from the jungle, talking heat thick as soup, ambushes in the night, buddies lost to booby traps that shredded flesh like paper. Then in '71, the knock came at dawn, 2 men in dress blues on the step, hats in hand. Tom gone, hit by friendly fire, they said, a mistake in the fog of war. The flag they folded neat as a pin landed heavy in my lap at the funeral, the preacher's words washing over me like rain on a tin roof. The house felt hollow after that, echoes bouncing off the walls where Tom's laughter used to ring. Harry drank more, whiskey from a flask hidden in the barn, his limp worse from the stress. I held the family together, baking pies for the church bake sale, volunteering at the VFW to roll bandages even though the war was winding down. But the economy turned sour in the '70s, that oil embargo hitting like a sucker punch. Gas lines snaked round the block, prices sky high, and our old truck guzzled it like a thirsty camel. Corn yields dropped from the drought, banks calling in loans we scraped to pay. Elias lost his job when the rig shut down, moving back home with his wife and 2 kids, the farmhouse bursting at the seams. Rosie came visiting more then, her own life a tangle. That secret from the war years the baby she'd given up haunted her. Letters from the adoption agency trickling in about a girl searching for roots. Rosie'd weep quiet in the kitchen, saying she did it for the family, but the guilt chewed her like a dog with a bone. Harry knew, of course, he'd overheard whispers back when we were courting, and he'd held it close, never judging but carrying the weight. One night during a storm, thunder crackling like artillery, he confessed to me by the fire. Your sister's pain is like mine from Korea, buried deep till it festers. We cried together, holding hands across the decades, secrets spilling out like rain from the eaves. The recession of the early 80s piled on, farms foreclosing left and right, like dominoes in a gale. Our lender came calling, suits starched stiff, demanding payments we didn't have. Harry fought it, joining the tractor case down to the Capitol in Des Moines, driving our old John Deere with signs read in family farms, not factories. I packed lunches for the protest, bologna sandwiches on homemade bread, watching from the kitchen window as he loaded up with neighbors, their faces grim as granite. The news showed them blocking roads, praying for relief, but Reagan's policies squeezed tighter, interest rates beaten like frost. We sold off the back 40, the one Pa gave us as a wedding gift, watching the auctioneer hawk it cheap to some big ag corp from out east. Elias took it worse, arguing with Harry till voices rose higher than the silo. This land's been thorn soil for generations, he'd yell, fists clenched, but the bank won. We kept the house barely, scraping by on Social Security and my pension from the diner, where I waited tables till my hips ached. Jenny married a teacher, moved to California, chasing sunshine, sending pictures of grandkids with beachy grins. Tom's memory lingered in his room, untouched dog tags on the dresser catching the light. Holidays were quiet. Thanksgiving turkey smaller each year, but we'd gather around the table, sharing stories to fill the silence. Then cancer crept in on Harry in '85, quiet as a thief, eating him from the inside like termites in a beam. Docs in Iowa City said it was from Agent Orange exposure, that jungle poison from Vietnam lingering in the water or wind. He waved it off at first, saying it was just the rheumatiz, but the cough worsened, deep and racking, blood flecks on his handkerchief. Chemo drained him, hair falling out in clumps, but he joked through it, calling himself balder than a billiard ball. I nursed him fierce, spooning broth, and read him from the Bible, Psalms his favorite for comfort. The farm slipped further, weeds choking the fields, but neighbors helped with a barn-raising spirit, bringing casseroles and mowing what was left. Rosie's girl found us in '87, a knock at the door from a woman named Sarah, 38, with Rosie's eyes and a tentative smile. Turns out she'd searched for years, piecing together clues from old records. Rosie collapsed in her arms, sobs shaking them both on the porch, while I brewed tea strong as tar. Secrets tumbled out that day, Sarah's life in foster homes, the ache of not knowing roots, Rosie's regret sharp as a knife. Harry watched from his sickbed, smiling weak, saying family's what you make it, blood or no. It healed something in Rosie, letting her sleep sounder, but the joy was bittersweet with Harry's clock ticking down. He passed in '89, gentle in his sleep, the room smelling of lilacs from the garden I'd picked. The funeral was packed, VFW honor guard folding another flag, taps echoing over the graveyard like a lonesome train. I stood by the grave, wind whipping my veil, feeling the weight of all those losses, Tom's box from Vietnam, Jake's star from World War II, Pa's purple heart gathering dust. The farm sold piecemeal after, just enough to keep me in the house, living on beans and memories. Elias moved to the city for steady work. Jenny sent checks from the coast, but the emptiness gnawed deep. '90s brought more blows, the Gulf War stirring old ghosts, though none of ours went this time. Economy boomed for some, but not us small folk. My Social Security barely covered the pills for my arthritis, hands twisting like old roots. Rosie passed in '95, heart giving out from the stress, Sarah coming back for the burial with her own family in tow. We scattered hashes by the creek where we'd played as girls, whispering goodbyes to the water rushing on. Secrets died with her, but the resilience stuck, teaching me to lean on community, the church ladies with their quilts and prayers, neighbors sharing garden surplus when the frost killed my tomatoes. Into the new millennium, the dot-com bust and 9/11 shook the nation, but I held steady, volunteering at the senior center, telling stories to kids wide-eyed over tales of ration stamps and victory gardens. Grandkids visited sporadic, Elias's boy joining the army for Iraq, sending emails about sandstorms and heat. I worried fierce knitting socks for him like Mama did for Pa, praying no more telegrams came. The Great Recession of '08 hit last, banks failing like houses of cards, folks losing homes left and right. My pension took a hit, but the house stayed mine. Thanks to a reverse mortgage Harry set up sly. That's when the accident took him for good. That rainy road stealing my partner after all we'd weathered. Through it all, the tragedies layered like sedimentary rock wars, stealing suns, recessions, burying dreams, secrets festering like untreated wounds. But resilience bloomed too in barn raisins and family reunions, in the quiet faith that got us through foxholes and foreclosures. I bent low many a time, back creaking under the load, but never snapped clean. Community held us, that American grit woven tight as a quilt from scraps. And now, looking back from my rocker, I see the pattern life's a hard row to hoe, but plant the seeds right and something grows. Hang on, darling, 'cause the storms pass, leaving rainbows if you're lucky. The resolution came slow, pieced together like a puzzle with missing bits, but it did come, bringing light after the long dark. Harry's death in the accident was the capstone, but the buildup was a lifetime of gut punches. After Tom came home in that flag-draped box, the family splintered subtle at first. Jenny dropped out of college for a spell, running wild with a crowd of anti-war hippies, coming home with peace signs painted on her jeans and stories of Woodstock that made my hair curl. "Ma, it's a new world," she'd say, hugging me tight, but I saw the hurt in her eyes. Tom's loss driving her to escape. Harry and I argued nights, him wanting to ship her off to relatives, me saying let her grieve her way. We patched it eventual, Jenny finding her feet as a nurse in a VA hospital, healing vets with ghosts like her brothers. Yas's marriage strained too, his wife Clara leaving him in '74 after the oil bust left him jobless and bitter. She took the kids to her ma's in Nebraska, saying the farm life was killing her slow. Elias drank hard then, stumbling home from the roadhouse with bruises and regrets, Harry hauling him out of fights more than once. "Boy, you're breaking your ma's heart," he'd growl, but Elias would just slump in a chair, head in hands. I cooked extra, slopping stew into bowls late at night, listening to his sobs about losing everything. Years later, they reconciled, Clara coming back when the economy ticked up, but the scars ran deep, teaching forgiveness the hard way. The farm foreclosure dragged on like a bad toothache in the '80s. Court dates in the county seat, lawyers in cheap suits arguing over ledgers red as blood. We joined the farm crisis hotlines, talking desperate to counselors who promised help that never came. Neighbors lost more Big Johnson down the road, hung himself in the barn, leaving a note about the bank winning. Harry found him swinging one morning while checking fences, coming home white as milk, arms shaking. That night we held each other, crying for what the land took, the American dream turning nightmare for so many. Protests ramped up, us driving to Washington once, joining thousands on the mall with signs and songs, feeling small but together. Harry's cancer battle was brutal, chemo leaving him sick as a dog, puking in the night while I wiped his brow with cool cloths. Docs gave months, but he fought 2 years, willing himself stronger for me. "Can't leave you to fend alone, old girl," he'd wheeze, squeezing my hand. I sold jewelry mama left me, pearl necklace from her wedding to cover bills, but the pain was the worst watching him fade, the man who danced me around the kitchen, now too weak to stand. Church prayed, potlucks piled high, but nothing stopped it. His last words were "love you forever," breath rattling out like wind from a bellows. After loneliness hit like a freight train, nights I'd wander the empty rooms, touching his shirts in the closet, smelling of pipe tobacco and sweat. Rosie helped move him in for a bit, her own health failing from years of cannery work, lungs scarred from dust. We'd sit on the porch, sipping tea, unpacking that old secret, her baby's father, a soldier shipped overseas, leaving her alone and scared. I thought giving her up was mercy, she'd whisper, tears tracking down wrinkles. When Sarah arrived, it was redemption pure, mother and daughter hugging till the sun set, family expanding like yeast and dough. Sarah's kids called me great grandma, filling the house with noise again, Thanksgivings booming with laughter. But losses kept coming past. In '92, old age finally claiming him at the VFW, surrounded by war buddies toasting his memory. Mama lingered till '96, dementia stealing her piece by piece, not recognizing me some days, calling for Jake like he was still a boy. I fed her pureed peas, sang hymns soft, holding her hand till she slipped away peaceful. Elias had a heart attack in 2003, bypassed surgery, saving him but slowing him down, moving closer to help with the grandkids. Jenny's divorce in 2008, right before the recession, left her starting over at 50, but she bounced back fierce, opening a daycare on the coast. The 9/11 attack shook me deep, watching the towers fall on the little TV Harry, Bud, and 70, praying for the city folk, faceless but kin. Elias's boy deployed soon after, letters from Kuwait talking sand in every crevice, fear of bombs in the night. I sent care packages cookies that crumbled, socks I knit crooked, words of love scribbled on notepaper. He came home whole, but changed, jumpy at loud noises, therapy helping slow. The recession then foreclosed, dreams again, friends losing nests. But community rallied, food banks stocking shelves, churches hosting job fairs. I volunteered, sharing depression tales to put things in perspective. We ate dandelion greens, kids, and thanked the Lord. Through Vietnam's jungles, recessions bites, cancer's claw, secrets sting, resilience was the thread holding us. Barn raisins after storms, family reunions with potlucks, faith in the face of fire, American spirit, that's what it is, persevering through the muck, rising with the dawn. Tragedies built walls, but love tore them down brick by brick. And as I weathered them all, I learned hope's not a wish, it's a choice, made daily like churning butter. Now with Harry's fresh loss, I'm ready to face what's next, secrets and all. Let me dive deeper into the Vietnam-era struggles. When Tom shipped out, the house felt like it held its breath. His room stayed pristine, bed made tight, posters of muscle cars on the wall. Jenny and I wrote letters weekly, including snapshots of the farm in fall, leaves turning gold like treasure. News from the front was grim, Tet offensive in '68, body counts on the TV every night, Walter Cronkite's voice somber as a funeral. Harry turned it off, saying F poison, but we'd sneak peeks, hearts pounding. Tom's unit was in the Mekong Delta, patrols through rice paddies swarming with leeches and snipers. One letter described a buddy stepping on a punji stake, screaming till the medevac came, blood soaking the mud red as rust. Back home, the town divided, draft dodgers heading to Canada, others enlisting patriotic. Our church split, Reverend Hayes preaching support for the troops, but young folks protesting in the park with signs saying, hell no, we won't go. I joined the Blue Star Mothers, meeting weekly to sew quilts for the boys overseas, needles flying as we swap fears. My Danny's in the DMZ once a voice cracking, and we'd hug sisters in sorrow. Rationing wasn't official, but prices soared, meat scarce, so we stretched beans into chili, cornmeal into mush. Elias helped more than dropping out of community college to work the farm full time, his dreams of engineering fading like smoke. The day the telegram came, I was hanging wash on the line, sheets billowing white in the breeze. The Western Union boy, no more than 16, handed it over with eyes downcast, knowing what it meant. Mrs. Thorne, it read, the Secretary of War regrets. I crumpled it, sinking to the grass, world spinning. Neighbors came running, Mrs. Wilkins hugging me tight, her own son safe but scarred. Funeral was military, rifles cracking salute over the casket, the flag sharp against the green cemetery hill. Tom looked peaceful, but I saw the boy who'd fished with me in the creek now stolen by politics and pride. Harry stood stone still, but that night he broke, sobbing in the barn till dawn, hay sticking to his wet face. Aftermath rippled. Jenny rebelled hard, hitchhiking to D.C. for the moratorium march, coming home with tear gas stories and a black eye from cops. We grounded her, but she snuck out, living notes about peace and love. Elias turned inward, working till he dropped, marrying Clara too quick in '72, thinking a family'd fill the hole. It did temporary, babies crying distracting from the quiet, but the war's shadow hung, Tom's dog tags on a chain, Elias wore under his shirt. Economic woes compounded it. The 70s stagflation, inflation eating savings like termites. Our loan payments doubled. Bank manager Mr. Hargrove calling meetings in his office, smelling of cigars. Sign here for the extension, he'd say, pen poised, but it was a trap, interest pilling higher. Harry sold the tractor, the one Tom learned to drive, tears in his eyes as the buyer hauled it away. We planted kitchen garden, bigger potatoes and carrots, keeping us fed, but pride stung when we accepted food from the church pantry, cans of tuna and boxes of rice. Rosie's secret bubbled up more than stress cracking her shell. She'd drink sherry from a teacup, rambling about the baby, how she felt the kick last in the field alone, deciding to hide it. Pa would have disowned me, she'd cry, and I'd hold her saying blood's thicker than shame. Harry overheard one night, pulling me aside later, let her unburden Mabel like I did with Korea Tales. He shared his own then, nights in the hills, watching friends freeze, guilt over surviving when others didn't. Secrets bonded us, threads in the family tapestry. The 80s farm crisis was war without bullets. Auctions every Saturday, families packing U-Hauls with tear-streaked faces. We attended one for the Millers, watching their lifetime of tools go for pennies, the crowd silent as ghosts. Harry testified at a hearing, voice steady. This ain't free enterprise, it's robbery, but the law changed little corporate farms swallowing small ones whole. We lost the herd, cows low and sad as they loaded onto trucks, milk money gone. I took in sewing, hemming dresses for townsfolk, fingers bleeding from the needle, but it kept lights on. Harry's illness started a subtle cough he blamed on dust. By 86, weight dropping, docs poking and prodding. Diagnosis hit like lightning, stage 3 lung cancer spreading fast. Radiation burned his skin red as lobster, chemo making food taste like ash. I drove him to treatments 2 hours each way on bumpy roads, holding his hands silent. Home, he'd rest in the recliner, me reading Louis L'Amour books to take him west in his mind. Kids came, Elias building a ramp, Jenny flying in from the coast with hugs and hope. But pain mounted, morphine dulling it, but clouding his eyes. Last month we talked legacies, him apologizing for burdens carried. Tell the kids I love them, he'd whisper, and I promised, though my heart broke fresh. When he slipped away, the room still, I felt half gone too. Burial beside Tom and Pa, the plot full now, but the living pressed on. Rosie's reunion with Sarah brought joy, stories flowing like the river, forgiveness washing waves. Sarah's family became mine, holidays fuller, laughter echoing. Later struggles, the 2000s brought tech changes, but I stuck to basics, email from the library to keep touch. Elias's health scare, heart attack at 55, surgery in Des Moines with me waiting in the hall, praying rosaries worn smooth. He pulled through, quitting smokes cold, family rallying with meals and visits. Jenny's divorce, husband living for a younger gal, left her crying on my shoulder over phone lines. Start fresh, honey, I said, and she did. Business booming with tots under her care. Recession of odd age, stocks crashing like in 29, friends penniless. I helped where could, showering garden harvest, teaching canning to grandkids. Harry's accident, then the final blow, but by then I'd learned bending with the wind, roots deep from years of storms. Struggles shaped me, tragedies the forge, resilience the hammer. USA themes wove through war's sacrifice, recession's grit, secrets heal. Hopeful end, 'cause after dark comes dawn. One vivid struggle, during the 80s crisis, a storm hit hard, tornado touching down, destroying the barn. Neighbors came at dawn, hammers pounding, women cooking coffee black. Harry directed, sweat pouring, saying, together we stand. It rebuilt us, community the glue. Another Vietnam protest. Jenny arrested for sitting and bailing her out with farm egg money, lecturing gentle, fight smart girl. She listened, eventual channeling anger to helping vets. Cancer days, Harry hallucinating from meds, calling for fallen buddies, me soothing their peace love. It broke me, but strengthened too. Rosie's confession full. The father, Lieutenant Daniels, promised marriage but died in Pacific, leaving her pregnant and alone. Adoption in Chicago, heart ripped, but Sarah's return mended. Elias's divorce details. Clara said the land cursed us, taking Tom the farm. He begged, but she left kids crying. Reconciliation when she saw his fight, love rekindling. Post 9/11, grandson's deployment, letters describing heat, fear, but pride and mission. Homecoming hug, him tall but vulnerable, therapy group sharing stories like VFW of old. Recession, helping neighbor widow Mrs. O'Leary, packing her house for sale, finding old letters from her war husband. We cried, bonded in loss. All this built resilience, layered upon layer, hopeful tone, emerging from the pain. Life's tragedies teach secrets free when shared, USA perseverance, the core. After all those storms raging through the years, wars chewing up our boys, recessions grinding farms to dust, secrets festering like old wounds, the turning point came slow like dawn creeping over the horizon after a long night. It started a few months before Harry's accident back in '07 when the family started pulling together tighter than a fiddle string. Elias, who'd been living up in Sioux City with his second wife after Clara came back in the 90s, called one evening saying he found something in the attic of the old cabin we'd sold off during the 80s crisis. Ma, it's letters from Grandpa Thorne, your pa, he said, voice crackling over the line like dry leaves and some from Tom, too stuff we never knew. I sat there in my kitchen, the one Harry and I remodeled with knotty pine shelves holding jars of homemade jam, and felt the shiver run down my spine like the hand of time itself. The kids planned a reunion that summer, driving in from all corners. Jenny from her daycare in San Diego, flying coach with her 2 grown daughters, Tom's nieces, who never met their uncle but carried his middle name, Elias, and Clara with their grandkids, now teens tall as cornstalks, and Sarah Rosie's girl from Ohio with her husband and 3 little ones. Even distant cousins showed Pa's side from Kansas, packing the farmhouse till it bulged at the seams like an overfilled quilt. We set up picnic tables under the big oak, the one that survived the tornado in '84, its branches spreading shade wide as a circus tent. Barbecue ribs slow cooked over hickory smoked potato salad, creamy with mayo from the co-op, and apple pie baked in Mama's old recipe, the crust flaky as prayer. Laughter rang out first time in years, filling the air sweeter than the wild honeysuckle climbing the fence. Elias brought the box that evening after supper. As the fireflies started dancing, we gathered on the porch, rockers creaking under our weight. The letters were yellow, tied with twine, faded from years in the dark. First ones from Pa during World War II, scrawled in pencil on onion skin paper, talking about the beaches of Normandy, D-Day waves crashing red with blood, his buddies falling left and right, but him pushing on for us back home. Tell the young'uns I love them. He wrote in one dated June 6, 44, "This fight's for their tomorrows, farms, and freedoms we hold dear." I read it aloud, voice hitching like an old engine, my hands shaking holding, the paper thin as memory. Jake's name came up too, my brother lost in Italy, a note from him, tucked in saying he was proud to serve beside Pa, even if the shells screamed louder than banshees. Then Tom's letters from Vietnam 70 smudged with jungle mud, describing the heat that sucked the life out of you, patrols where the enemy hid in the vines like ghosts. One hit hard written weeks before he died. Ma, don't worry, I'm watching out for the little guys like you taught me resilience, Thorn style. But the kicker was the hidden ones from Harry himself, drafts he never sent tucked at the bottom. Turns out during Korea he'd written about survivor's guilt, the friends he couldn't save in that frozen reservoir, the shrapnel that took his leg but spared him. Mabel, if I don't make it, know I carried your love like a shield, one read unfinished. And there intermingled was a note from Rosie to me, dated 43, the year of her secret pregnancy. Sis, I'm scared, but I'll do right by the family, hide this baby to keep our name clean, pray for me. Secrets spilling out like beans from a burst sack right there under the stars. We cried that night a river of tears, washing away the grime of unspoken pains. Jenny hugged me tight, her mascara running black as night. Ma, you carried this alone too long, she whispered, and Elias nodded, his eyes red as a beet. Pa knew, Pa always knew, and he loved us fierce through it all. Sarah shared her side too, how finding Rosie healed her own foster scars, the ache of not knowing where she came from, now filled with thorn blood and stories. Clara, who'd left once in anger over the land's curse, knelt by me saying, "Forgive me for running, I see now the strength in sticking." The grandkids listened wide-eyed, the boys fiddling with Tom's old dog tags, the girls asking questions about the wars and why folks fought so hard. It was like peace in a broken quilt, every thread connecting us stronger, no more loose ends. From that reunion, the healing spread like wildfire in dry grass. We decided to rebuild something tangible, a family legacy. To honor the lost, Elias and the boys got to hammering, fixing up the old barn that had stood empty since the foreclosure, the one where Harry found Big Johnson all those years back. They patched the roof with new tin shining, bright nailed, and fresh siding from the lumber yard down in town. I pitched in best I could, stirring paint the color of barn red, the kind Pa used back in the day, and planting flower boxes with petunias blooming pink and purple. Jenny organized work days, driving in with tools and take-out pizza, laughing as the kids learned to swing hammers without mashing thumbs. Sarah brought her crew too, her husband a carpenter by trade, showing the young ones how to level beams straight as a preacher's word. It took weeks, sweat, and calluses, but by fall, the barn stood proud again, walls echoing with new memories. We dedicated it with a ceremony simple as sin, Reverend Hayes' boy. Now the pastor preaching on forgiveness and rising from ashes like the phoenix in them Bible stories. Folks from town came, neighbors who'd helped through the crises, bringing covered dishes and stories of their own losses. We hung the letters in frames on the walls, Pa's purple heart, polished bright Tom's flag, folded neat Jake's photo from the fair, smiling cocky. A plaque went up carved by Elias, thorn resilience through tragedies, wars, recessions, and secrets we endure. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours, a monument to the grit that got us through the American way, bending but not breaking. Small victories piled up after that. Jenny's business boomed her daycare, adding a wing for vet families, offering free spots for those hurting from Iraq and Afghanistan like Tom's Echo. She named it Thorns Haven after the reunion, saying it was for healing what the world broke. Elias got promoted at the co-op managing the grain elevator, his health steady from the bypass and the love surrounding him. Clara started a garden club, showering seeds from Mama's heirlooms, tomatoes sweet as kissing, passing knowledge to the grandkids who planted rows neat and true. Sarah wrote a book quiet like a family history piecing, our tales from the Dust Bowl to now self-published with covers showing the oak tree. Copies went round at Christmas read and aloud by the fire voices blending like harmony in a gospel choir. May have found peace in the shouting volunteer more at the senior center, telling the full story now, no holds barred. The old-timers nodded, knowing the weight of wars like Pa's, the young ones, listened hungry for roots in this fast world of screens and speed. Arthritis slowed my hands, but not my heart knitting blankets for the homeless shelter, the yarn soft as clouds donated from church ladies, and faith deepened to attending services regular, the hymns lifting me like wings, Pa's Bible open on my lap marked with notes from the struggles. God don't give us more than we can carry. I reckon looking back the load heavy, but the shoulders broad from years of hauling. Harry's accident came after that glow when we were strongest, but even in the shattering, it fit the resolution. The family rallied quick, Jenny flying, and immediate Tom's old room turned guest space for the kids. Elias handling the funeral simple at the church with VFW honors, taps playing soft over the hill. We buried him beside Tom and Pa, the plot a circle of love under the oak's watch. Grief hit fresh, but the secrets were out, the resilience proven, so I stood taller at the grave, saying goodbye with grace. Rest easy, Harry, we got this. Back home, the barn became our gathering spot, potlucks and story nights, keeping his spirit alive, his rocker fixed on the porch, creaking gentle in the breeze. Hope bloomed every day, now small as a crocus, but stubborn. Grandkids planting the fields, volunteering at food banks, learning the Thorn way, give back what life's given. USA themes wove through it all, World War II sacrifice, teaching duty, Vietnam's pain, birthing peace, recessions, forging grit, secrets, turning to strength. We weren't rich in dollars, but wealthy in bonds, the kind of wealth that outlasts storms. Life's tragedies resolved, not erased, but transformed into wisdom passed down like Mama's pie recipe, sweet with lessons hard won. And in that healing, I found my purpose, sharing so others might rise too. Now that the dust has settled on all those tales, the heartbreaks and hard-won healings, I sit here in my rocker on the porch watching the sun dip low over the fields, painting the sky gold and pink like a postcard from heaven. It's been a long road, darling, from that rainy day Harry left us in '08 to this quiet even where the crickets chirp their ending song and the oak tree stands sentinel, just like it has for generations. Life cycles turn like the seasons in Iowa winter's bite, giving way to spring's green promise, summer's bounty fading into fall's harvest, and then round again. I've seen them all, 80 plus years of them, and if there's one thing I know, it's that the Lord spins a pattern we can't always see till we're looking back from the hilltop. Tragedies come like thunder, but they pass, leaving rain to nourish the roots if you let them. Thinking on the USA themes that wove through our yarn, it's clear as creek water how this land shapes folks tough and true. World War II took Pi and Jake, but it taught duty, that quiet honor of standing for something bigger than yourself. Foxholes in Normandy, building men who came home to plow fields and raise families with grit in their bones. Vietnam stole Tom and scarred Harry with that Agent Orange shadow, but from the ashes rose peace movements and healing for vets, the VA hospitals where Jenny works today, patching wounds, body and soul. Recessions hit like hammers. The Dust Bowl starving us, the 70s oil crunch, the 80s farm bust, our 8 crashing markets. But each time, American perseverance shone through tractorcades on the highways, community barn raising, sharing the load, so no one falls alone. And the secrets, Rosie's, hidden baby Harry's, unspoken guilt, they festered dark, but when spilled out in that reunion under the stars, they turned to gold forgiveness binding us tighter than blood. Resilience ain't some fancy word from a book, darling. It's the everyday choice to rise when life's knocked you flat. Like after Tom's flag draped box came home, I could have curled up in bed till the cows came home, but instead I baked pies for the church, sold them to keep the lights on, and held Jenny when she raged against the war. Or when the bank took the back, 40 Harry and I walked the fence line hand in hand, planting victory garden seeds in the remaining soil, saying we'll make do with what's left. It's in the small acts, 2 knitting socks for grandkids deployed to Iraq like Mama did for Pa, whispering prayers over the stitches. Faith, the thread that mends the tears. We thorns bent low under the weight wars, grief, recessions, pinch, secret, shame, but we didn't break because family and community were the glue, that American spirit of pulling together when the chips are down. Hope's the real gem, though, the quiet fire that keeps the home warm, even in blizzard times. It flickered dim when Harry coughed his last from that cancer, but it blazed back at the reunion letters unfolding like petals revealing love that outlasted the pain. Hopes and Sarah finding Rosie after all those lost years, mother and daughter hugging on the porch, tears washing away decades of what-ifs. It's in Elias beating his heart scare and managing the co-op, now teaching the young ones about sustainable farming so future recessions don't bite so deep. Jenny's Thorns Haven daycare full of tots learning kindness early. That's hope planted in little hearts growing tall. And me volunteering at the senior center spinning these yarns to wide-eyed folks, reminding them that life's not just the blows, it's the bouncing back with a smile and a story to share. Looking ahead, the cycles keep turning grandkids, marrying, having babes of their own. The farm passing to Elias's boy who studies agronomy at Iowa State, dreaming green tech to fight climate woes, whatever that means in this changing world. I'll be going someday, I reckon, joining Harry, Tom, Pa, and Rosie up yonder, but I'll leave them the legacy of rising the Thornway. No silver spoons, just callous hands and full hearts ready for whatever storms brew next. That's the beauty of this American ride, full of potholes and detours, but scenic views if you keep driving. So darling, as I wrap this tale that's rattled round my head like loose change in a pocket, I want you to take something from it. Hold your kin close, spill the secrets before they bury you. Lean on neighbors when the winds howl, cause that's how we endure. Share your own stories in the comments below, honey. Tell me about your heartbreaks and triumphs, the wars your folks fought, the hard times you weathered, and the hope that pulled you through. Like and subscribe if this touched your soul, and pass it on to a friend who needs a warm hug from an old gal like me. We're all in this together, riding the same dusty road, and Sharon lightens the load. God bless and keep smiling till next time.